I have great pleasure in extending to you all a hearty welcome to this evening's lecture. This lecture is being held under the auspices of an endowment founded by Srimati Tarasena Rao, daughter-in-law of Professor C.R. Narayan Rao, in memory of her father-in-law for arranging a lecture annually. Professor C.R. Narayan Rao, after his early education at Bellary and after passing his FA examination, went to Chennai or then Madras and took his BA degree from the Christian College. At the Christian College, he came in under the influence of great educationist Dr. Reverend Miller. After passing his degree in 1902, he joined the Presidency College and took his master's degree in zoology in 1904. Throughout his academic career, he won several proficiency prizes. In 1905, he joined the Central College, Bangalore as reader in zoology. Later, for a year or two, he held the position of principal of Teachers Training College in Mysore. When the Mysore University was started in the year 1916, he was posted back to Central College as professor of zoology, which post he held till his retirement in 1938. He has worked on fossils and published a paper on fossils in 1925-26. Later, he had intensive and extensive research in frog morphology. He was also the president of the Indian Science College in 1939. He was also the first secretary to the Indian Academy of Sciences. He was founder editor of the influential science journal Current Science. Professor C.R. Narayan Rao breathed his last on 2nd January 1966. In remembering Professor C.R. Narayan Rao, we remember a great and a devoted scientist who laid the foundation of scientific work in India. We are grateful to Srimati Tarasena Rao for founding this endowment and giving us an opportunity to remember a great scientist. Friends, we have with us today another accomplished person, Dr. S Sundararajan, known to many of us here. He has spoken from this platform more than a couple of times. A very accomplished person. He has 48 years of experience in teaching, research and guideship, educational administration and publication of books and research papers in the field of botany, biotechnology, environmental sciences, medicinal plants of India, and history of philosophy of science. All of us have studied his books. He has published more than 70 books. He has held very prestigious positions. He was professor and head of the postgraduate department of botany, St. Joseph College, from 1966 to 2002. Then he was principal, Reva Institute of Science and Technology 2002-2004, and he was Dean, School of Biotechnology, RIA University, Bangalore for 2004-5, then Principal and Dean, S.G. Reddy College 2005-11, and now at present he is the Director for the Center for Advanced Studies in Biosciences, Jain University, Bangalore till date. I don't want to go into the details of his accomplishments. Nevertheless, whatever he delivers today on the subject, life and consciousness in plants, is a very interesting topic for people like us who are from various sectors of the society. I feel if this lecture can change our attitude towards plants, trees, the object of holding this talk is fruitful. We need to have a what you can call a refined, cultured outlook on plants and trees for our own good and for the generations to come. And with my own limited reading, I do have come across people who are able to communicate to plants, and plants do respond as human beings. Only we need to have a subtle, what is called as in Sanskrit as antahkarana, to communicate to plants. With this brief introduction, I need request Dr S Sundararajan to deliver this year's Professor C.R. Narayana lecture on life and consciousness plants. Thank you.
As I was coming here, my wife told me you talk loudly because she is always accustomed to me talking in a low voice. I think that is what every married man will do. I have her permission so I can talk loudly. Mr. Ramu, distinguished audience, Gokhale Institute is a hallowed premises. I told him this is the place where most celebrated souls in live flesh, they have walked here, they have shared their thoughts. I consider myself very, very fortunate to be here. Before starting my talk, I want to share an experience with you which I had just when I was entering the premises. As I was just entering, I felt I heard a voice, "Stop." I was just wondering who it could be because my sons and my wife, they were a bit away. I was wondering it is an authoritative voice. I thought if it is authoritative voice, it can come only from my boss. Why? But she was not there. And then I asked myself, who could it be? Then a tree said, "Can't you hear me?" Oh, I was wondering a tree is talking to me. I said, "What do you want?" Do you know what the tree said? "We don't want anything from you human beings. You take something from us. So don't ask me what do I want. You ask what do you want. Because we have been accustomed to give and you have been accustomed to take." And I was told that there is a lecture of yours about us. So I want to caution you, don't talk crap, talk sense, talk beautifully good things about us. Don't classify this, that and everything into gymnosperms, angiosperms and all. That is all your artificial classification. Don't do all those things. Right? Talk properly. Then I too felt, why don't you come in? It laughed at me. Why do I need to come in? It is only for you human beings. You cannot see beyond a wall. You cannot hear beyond a distance. You cannot talk. You cannot feel. You cannot find the smell and all those things. I am here only. From here itself I can listen. And besides, imagine what happens if all of us come inside and go on walking on the road. So don't bother about it to talk. And it said, I am also warning you. What is that warning? I will tell you at the end of the lecture. What warning the plant gave me. This is in a lighter vein. Dear friends, the field of plant neurobiology, I would like to talk in about 3 or 4 aspects. First, you should know what is a plant, what is a plant life, and what are its social interactions with all other forms of life. And then, we should also know something about the consciousness. What is consciousness? Is consciousness so unique only to human beings and not to plants? Or is consciousness there in plants also? Or are we wrong in defining what is consciousness with reference to plants? And then few examples of plant consciousness and the 5 elements of consciousness or 5 kinds of manifestation of consciousness, namely vision, sight, seeing, touching, etc. Is it present in the plants? If though, how do they manifest that? Is it in any way different from the way we human beings manifest that? And a few examples of the manifestation of this. And then apart from the usual stories, facts, fiction, yes, there is fiction also in this. I also would like to know some of the hardcore experiments, which is biochemical, molecular, biological, right, and signaling channels, how all these things are present. And then perhaps I would also move on towards the end, a subject and a topic that is very dear to me. Have we Indians contributed anything to this? Not at the present day, is it clear? In times of yore, during the Mahabharata and Ramayana times, did we have an understanding that plants have life, consciousness and all those things? And then I always believe not in just living in the past, but bringing it also to the present as to whether any person, any scientist, any individual Indian has contributed anything to this. So these are the few things that I am going to talk today. First of all, what is a plant? Of course, we always believe in defining what the plant should be. Plant life is very unique. I do not know whether for a moment you have thought what you could have done, what you could not have done if you were to be in the position of a plant. Remember something like a solitary confinement? You are asked to eat, you are asked to do everything, you are asked to box, you are asked to fight, show pleasure, happiness, sadness, everything you have to do. You have to fight all the battles. You are not able to turn back, you are not able to scoot and run away. No. Have you ever imagined as to how fantastically, in a beautiful manifestation of their prowess, they have been doing all these things since when? Not since yesterday, not since millions of years, even before you and I made the scene on this planet. It is really fantastic, I am telling you. They are so self-sufficient, is it clear? They don't ask anything from you. Just as the plant said that, you don't give me anything. When I said, normally what do you say? What do you want? I said, I don't want anything. They are there truly, I am telling you, I genuinely am telling you, they are truly the reflections of the God incarnate. Because they always believe in giving rather than in receiving. I will just tell you one simple example. Photosynthesis is the process on which all of us are sustaining our lives upon. All other forms of life are dependent on these green plants for the production of food. And how self-sufficient, not self-sufficient, how selfless they are and how concerned they are towards other forms of life and nature, you will understand. Out of the 6 molecules of carbon dioxide that they take from the atmosphere, do you know how much they return back? 5 molecules they give back. That means out of 100% when they take in, 84% they return. 84% they return. You tell this to any management graduate, you say, the system is not efficient. But somehow tune it up and make it 100%. They do not know if it's 100%, the whole thing will collapse. And with this 16% so-called efficiency, what are they doing? In fact, I should say, what are they not doing instead of what they are doing? They prepare food for themselves, survive, and the amount of food that they prepare within a limited time of less than 12 hours per day, not 24 hours, less than 12 hours per day is sufficient for them. Extra what they store, they give to you, to me, and to everything. All other forms of life would not have survived if plants were not to be there. You call them inefficient with only 16%. And returning 84%, they are doing all these things. They are unique in many other respects also. As I have told you, they give to the environment, the gaseous exchange, chemicals they produce, and besides the life-giving oxygen on which all of us sustain ourselves is also from the plants. But we have taken this munificence of God granted. But the kind of work, the kind of behavior we show towards our plants is something inexcusable. If, God forbid, if ever plants turn their wrath on us, what will happen? You and I will not be here to discuss this. Fortunately, they are so kind. They are so kind. How? You throw stone at them, in turn they give you a fruit. Have you ever heard of any human being doing this? Instead, when you are so heated up, go there. It provides you shade. It provides you cool breeze. There is nothing that the plant has not given us. In turn, what have we given? Chop off that branch, chop off this branch, even then it holds on to it. It does not show any anger on us. With this brief introduction, now I would like to show, are the plants living by themselves? I have already given sufficient examples. They are the life givers. They are the food givers. They are givers of everything. In fact, in one short term I tell you, when you look at a tree, I don't think you should get any feeling other than reverence towards them. What are the social interactions of plant? Because normally, as I told you, we take plants for granted for everything. Is it clear? Because whatever you do, they don't do anything at all. Like the mythological proverbial Lord Krishna, who told Shishupala when he wanted to annihilate him, he said, I will allow you up to 100 mistakes. Let us not do that 100 mistake. I do not know what is the amount of mistakes that you have done already. Plants survive in developing a number of social contacts. Plant, they live in a society, in a communion. In fact, there is a separate branch of botany called phytosociology. They are having their communities, they are having their societies, individuals, groups. They interact among themselves, they interact between plants and animals, interact between plants and human beings, interact between plants and insects. All these things are possible. Now, just understand, if plants were not to have consciousness, if plants were not to have the ability to communicate, would all these things have been possible? I will just give you one or two examples, I'm telling you. They produce a fantastic fragrance. Is it for themselves? No. Is it clear? The fragrance is for the insects. The fragrance is for the human beings. The fragrance is for the flowers which you use to worship the God Almighty. Because they produce a particular kind of a fragrance, is it clear? And they want to attract only one particular kind of insects because only they get attracted. And in turn, when they visit the flower, is it clear? It is not that the insects will be cheated. Insects are provided with the finest of the nectar. No adulterated, no diluted, pure, simple honey they get. And in order to attract them, is it clear? All kinds of adaptations they develop so that the particular kind of insects will always visit them day in and day out. And they also have association or interrelationship with the microbes in the soil. I think many of the biology persons here, they know that mycorrhizal association, symbiotic association. And then between themselves, is it clear? They do communicate. Perhaps a little later I will tell you how do they communicate. Is it clear? Suppose there is a danger lurking outside. One tree tells the other, one plant tells the other, look, this is the kind of danger that is there. And they also have, I don't call them their own, I don't say slaves, their own, informers, CIDs, which collect information, process them and tell the plant, yes, this is what is happening, be careful. There are instances, there are proof. I am not just talking in the air, right? So these are the fantastic kinds of associations that the plants have developed. Well, I think it will be really interesting, is it clear, to study the life and habits of these plants. Now, I will come to the main topic now. In fact, the word consciousness has so many dimensions, has so many connotations, has so many meanings, sometimes highly individualistic. It really, I think the definition itself is much more complicated than consciousness itself. Is it clear? But I am not a philosopher. Is it clear? I am not a spiritualist. So, I don't venture to go to that quicksand or whirlpool of describing what is consciousness in spiritual terms, soul and all those things. Purely in physical terms, very purely in physical. I know this definition may not be total, may not be complete, and many of the people may not agree. Is it clear? But I limit myself only to the physical definition of what is consciousness and trying to show that, like human beings, whether plants have those elements of consciousness also. What is to be conscious? For example, all of us are conscious here, including me, and I am conscious of what I am talking also. Is it clear? To be able to hear, to be able to respond, right? To be able to receive, to be able to hear, right? With the 5 physical senses, the senses of touch, sense of vision, and then sense of smell, right? Sense of hearing. In all these things, if we are able to respond, from all these points of view, then one can say this is consciousness from physical terms. I repeat very clearly, in physical terms. Now, all of you are conscious, and of course nobody can say I am unconscious. You may not, of course many of you, your consciousness may not be here even though you are physically here. That is also possible, right? So, to be completely, totally conscious of what is going on here is, yes, definitely say, yes, there is consciousness. But unfortunately, there is one more problem. Suppose I say, plants can hear. Then I say, suppose I go and blabber, will it respond? Of course, if you blabber nonsense, it might respond in a different way also. Is it clear? Or suppose I sing a beautiful thing, will it dance? Yes, it does, provided you have the eyes to see the dancing. That means when we define something, unfortunately, our attitude has been anthropocentric. Anthropocentric means what I see is the truth. What I don't see is not the truth. What I define must be this. Is it clear? Because I say, whether plants have thinking ability, because to be conscious, you should be able to think also. Somebody might question, where is the head in the plant? No, we are so conditioned to think from the anthropocentric. Anthropocentric means man is in the center. Whatever he says, whatever he defines, there is a concept. From your perception, you put a framework and you put the concept there. That means only that concept which fits into the framework of what you think is true is the one. Otherwise, it is not there. Is it clear? A plant will not run away. A plant, you say, you do not know whether it hears or not. So normally the assumption is a plant is incapable of doing all these things. And for a very, very long time, it was thought that plants were inanimate. That means they were not even able to hear. Dead. That is why you see many a time when you want to define a person who is incapacitated, what do we say? He is in a vegetative state. There cannot be more insulting to a plant than considering someone as vegetative state, one who is incapacitated. So in terms of plants, if they are able to respond to all these things, if they can give responses to all these things, you should say it's a fact. But then you might ask, because conditions as we think from our limited point of view. Actually, what I should say, one more thing also, we always, whenever we define something, whenever we explain something, whenever we understand something, we put blinkers. Blinkers means like racehorses, a racehorse is only the path, nothing else. This way, that way, it should not see, it won't see also. When we are defining something totally with regard to the life, we should not put on blinkers. It is foolish, because if you put on blinkers, you will get only a tunnel view. I hope you understand what I mean. You will not be able to have a holistic view. It is not possible. Is it clear? But when we are defining plants, show some kindness to the plants. Is it clear? So don't put on a blinker, don't put on a framework of what you think is a concept and try to define them. For example, when we say plants can see, the first question is, do they have eyes? Otherwise, how can they see? Because you are not able to think that vision is possible without specifically having this one or two eyes. And then again, whether plants can smell, suppose I do, where is the nose? Because you think that there has to be a nose for the plants to be able to smell. In the sense, we are so much accustomed to having a structure behind a function. I repeat, we are so much accustomed to having a structure behind a function, we can never think that without a structure there could be function also. It is something totally unimaginable for us. Unimaginable that there is no structure yet there is a function. Of course, this may seem to be a paradox for you, because a contradiction within itself. It is not. With reference to plant, it is quite possible that without there being any structure, there could be a function. Without there being any visible structure that you are able to perceive, still they can be function. Of course, you can say, can there be a function in vacuum? Yes. If you cannot function in a vacuum, why do you prevent others also from functioning in a vacuum? So, with reference to plants, is it clear? All these functions are there. Don't rack your brain too much if you have one with reference to, right? Whether there has to be a structure also. Now, with reference to seeing, plants can see. Literally, they can see. I am not talking any fiction. They can see because everybody can do this experiment. Have a small potted plant near a window. Where does it go? Normally, plant grows straight. It bends. There are photoreceptors in the plant. Is it clear? They are called phototropins. These phototropins, they absorb the light and produce a chemical and transport it to some other region. If they cannot see, how will they do it? And in order to satisfy your urge that, no, there has to be a visible structure. Yes, plants gives that also. It is a fact, I am not joking. Is it clear? How do we see? Because I am able to see you, you are able to see me. Because the light is reflected from me to you, so you are able to see me. And how do the human eyes or any other eyes function? Because of the reflection of the light, rods and cones, and then the image is transmitted back to the retina. A single-celled plant called Chlamydomonas, right, which swims in water. I am sure the biology students, many of them here, they know that there is what is known as an eye spot. There is an eye spot. And scientists at the Max Planck Research Institute in Germany, is it clear? They have found out that rods and cones are there in the eye spot of Chlamydomonas also. This is not a story. Is it clear? And hold your breath. The photoreceptor sensitivity of the Chlamydomonas eye spot is at least 1000 times faster than the human eye. Are you superior? A tiny microscopic unicellular Chlamydomonas is able to see much faster than you can react to a light. Now, of course, you might ask, why the eye spot is not there in all other plants also? Very simply, is it clear? This is necessary with reference to the ability to move. Is it clear? Now, then where are the eyes in the plant? The eyes are all over. Light is photoreceptive, leaf is photoreceptive. Some organs are not photoreceptive like the roots because they don't come across to the light. Then you also might ask, then why is it I am having eyes only in the front? Cannot have eyes all over? You have eyes all over, you will not be able to see. Even if you see in front, you don't walk properly. If you have eyes all over, where will you walk? Right? Whereas for plants, they are stationary. They don't move. As I told you, they are imprisoned. But yet, that imprisonment, they have not used it as a handicap, they have used it as an advantage. Thanks for one more reason also. Imagine how it would have been if trees were to start moving on Bull Temple Road. Already with the chaotic traffic, it would have been much more chaotic. So they are able to see, right? And how do they bend? And imagine how the signals are transferred. The phototropins, is it clear? They send signals which triggers a number of cells to produce a chemical called auxin. And all this is to absorb light. And this auxin, is it clear, moves back. And when the auxin moves back, which helps in the growth, there is less growth here and more growth here. So the shoot bends towards light to absorb more and more light. And then what happens? After it comes out of the window, you can put your theory. Once again, it bends back. If you want to, you can make a plant grow zigzag by changing the orientation of the light. And they also produce compounds like phytochromes. Is it clear? Chlorophyll synthesis takes place from these compounds only in the presence of light. They are able to feel touch. Insects that crawl, insects that bite, ants that bite. Is it clear? They have a sense of feeling. Now, what happens in our case, in human being? Suppose there is something, an ant is crawling. Immediately an electrical signal will go to the brain, is it clear? And says, show the reaction. In split second, is it clear? There will be a reaction. Same thing is there also. When an unwanted visitor unwanted guest like an ant comes and tries to pry something or bite something, do you know within a split second, signals will go. Of course, I will say where is the brain little later. Signals will go, and in a split second, the entire metabolism changes. If it is producing some sweet scent or something, is it clear? Immediately the metabolism will change to a bitter chemical, and the ant will run away. Why did I come here? And if an ant goes on biting, and do you know one more thing? A different kind of a chemical called phytoalexin is produced. And this phytoalexin makes the life of the ant so difficult that it will simply go away. So touch is there, and then smell. They can definitely smell, right? There is a parasitic plant called cuscuta. This cuscuta is able to, it's a total parasite. It is able to smell and grow in that direction, because just as a person entering into the kitchen has a sharp nose to find out what is cooking in the kitchen. Is it clear? It is finding what is cooking there. And then, if the cooking is not to its liking, it will turn away. Like you go into the kitchen and don't like the food. Is it clear? Of course, you may not go to another kitchen. So this it's called as the dodder plant or cuscuta. So it has a sense of smell. And I will give you one fantastic example of how plants will react to smelling. When fruits ripen, a kind of a hormone called ethylene is produced. And I think all of you must have experienced. Suppose you have banana, keep it for 3 or 4 days. Even from a distance, you will be knowing, yes, there is banana there. Is it clear? And this ethylene that is produced in one plant is transmitted to other. You can do this experiment. Suppose, let us say, you have only one mango tree or only one banana. Is it clear? For ripening, it takes a longer time. Is it clear? Whereas if groups of plants are there, is it clear? If ethylene is produced in one plant, all of them will ripen, because the ethylene will spread to other plants and taking the message, come on, this is time for you, wake up, ripen. In this way, is it clear? Even in mango, mandi and all those places, they put lots of fruits together. It is for this reason. It's sending a message to the others. And then, sense of hearing. Lots of work has gone on about this. Of course, I don't say definitely what kind of a music would be there, but they do react to sounds. Harsh sound and all, they are thrown into a fit. They are excited. They will be thrown into a fit and they will not be able to do anything. At the same time, if a melodious music is there, melodious sound is there, it seems, you see, they are not thrown into a fit. Now suppose we ask, how do you find out whether they are thrown into a fit or not? Very simply, there is an instrument called polygraph. Polygraph measures the electrical pulsations or the electrical energy in a given tissue. Is it clear? In a normal condition, the polygraph shows normal oscillations. Whenever the sound volume increases, just as you close your ears, they cannot close their ears. They show their unhappiness that this is not what they want. So these are all the senses and others that is present in 5 senses present in plants. Now, I will give you a few examples. I will give you a few examples as to how the plants will react to the environment with only one specific one. For example, there is a plant called, in common English, it's called Venus's flytrap. In botanical, it is known as Dionaea. This has a leaf with 2 lobes. In the center, there is a hinge. Just as a door closes and opens on the hinge, the 2 lobes of the leaf close and open whenever it is required, and they have indentations at the margin, so the indentations will close very tightly. Is it clear? And this Venus's flytrap, the leaf has got 3 hairs known as the trigger hairs on each lobe. Now, how beautifully, is it clear, a wireless transmission takes place here, I will tell you, because normally we say plants are less evolved than us. Is it clear? So here, what is the actual fact? When an insect or something edible to the plant sits here, is it clear? The 2 lobes of the leaf will close. Then naturally what you think that, suppose you touch the lobe, the leaflets will close. They don't. That means, but if you touch the trigger hairs, the 3 on one side and 3 on the other, if the trigger hairs are touched, then the action will not be the trigger head, the lobes of the leaf will close. What does it tell you? This tells that there is a receptor potential, is it clear? And there is a transmission potential and there is a reaction potential. Imagine how beautifully they are coordinated. The place of reception is something, is it clear? And the place of action is somewhere else. So there has to be a transmission. How specifically, how very, very correctly all this will take place, I tell you. This is an insectivorous plant. It catches the insects and eats them. Suppose an insect settles here. Is it clear? And then, the moment the insect lands there, right? You know how precisely computer calculations will take place there? When the insect first touches the trigger here, actually, unlike human beings, the Venus's flytrap is not trigger happy. It does not react immediately. It sees what is the size of the insect, whether it is suitable for it or not, whether it can chew it, digest it or not, because most of the time we know human beings, we put more into our mouth than what we can chew. Ultimately, literally and metaphorically, ultimately we have to spill it out. So calculations are done. And within, mind you, how much time? Within 20 seconds, there has to be one more touch. One more stimulus should be there. So at that time, the leaf is ready whether to throw it or to absorb it. So if it is suitable, then immediately in a split second, the message is sent through electrical potentials to the tip, where the reaction will take place and the two lobes of the leaflet will close. They close only to such an extent that the insect in question should not escape. And experiments have been conducted with insects of different size. If it is a bigger size insect, it will not close very tightly. If it is a smaller insect, it will close very, very tightly, so that it can absorb. All right, you fail that. It is only because of the touch or some tactile disturbance. So what do? You put a stone. And they say, yes, this foolish plant will react. The plant will turn back and say, you foolish human being, I know what you are doing. Is it clear? Nothing will happen. The leaflets will not, the lobes of the leaf will not close at all. And how it is done, I am telling you. And of course, this is my own research, which is yet to be proved. You know, in a wireless transmission, naturally first there will be a transmitter, is it clear? And then there is a receiver, like in mobile phone. And why are there towers for the mobile phone? Because to strengthen the signals. So here they will calculate, if the distance to be traversed is more, then obviously the signals will get weak. There will be repeater stations. In metaphorical terms, repeater stations there. So they will strengthen the signal, is it clear? And see that this is called the summation effect. Is it clear? First trigger, first touch, nothing will happen. Insect will not escape, nothing will happen. So we calculate whether it is worthwhile proceeding or not. See, even there is economy. If it is worthwhile, right, then it is okay. Then there has to be a second. And do you know how do they calculate that one? By the amount of wriggling and vibrations produced by the insect. They will calculate whether it is suitable or not. So this is how it is done. Now, do you mean to say then plants do not have consciousness? They will not be able to do all these things? Now, coming to the next aspect. So these are all the usual theories. And then I will tell you some more experiments, is it clear? Which are
Absorption takes place. Absorption of the insect.
They produce enzymes. Of course, I didn't go into that because let it eat leisurely. I kept quiet at that. Now, there are, I told you, certain examples, certain instances which are not totally verified. There is a person by name Tompkins. He has written a book, Secret Life of Plants. In this Secret Life of Plants, he says that how visually they react. A series of potted plants were kept in a room. One person came. He simply pulled out a plant in the presence of other witnesses. That is, the plants. Pulled out the plant, mashed it up and did everything, stamped and what all the violence that is possible to disturb or to destroy its structural integrity, he did it. Is it clear? And then he went out. For the remaining surviving plants, nothing has happened to them. He did not even come nearby. Is it clear? And then, when he entered the room, polygraph was attached to this, they showed violent oscillations, fearing that the same kind of treatment awaits them also. In another experiment, is it clear? These plants were in an adjacent room. Is it clear? One plant of that was taken, he brought it. In another room, he did his experiment. That is alive. And next time when he went to the other room, there also they showed the same thing. There also they showed. That means the wall was not a barrier for them at all. So there are several experiments like this. But I must also tell one thing, because these are all small carnivorous plants sending signals and all those things. Suppose you have a question. Is it that there are carnivorous trees which eat larger sized animals, human beings, pythons, etc.? In fact, to tell you frankly, all this is a fiction. So far, identifiable, verifiable carnivorous tree has not been found. In fact, there is one Madagascar tree. In fact, I was just checking today afternoon in the Google. Is it clear? One carnivorous tree, it seems, has been discovered in Beltangadi. I do not know which Beltangadi it is, because it is not a fact. Right? Now, what are the chemical mechanisms? What are the molecular mechanisms? Are there neurons? Because the moment we say consciousness, brain and all those things, there comes into picture the nervous system. And then the neurons, synapse, neurotransmitters. Is it clear? All these things should be there. Are they found in them? Because they are found, like you see, neurotransmitters like GABA, that is gamma aminobutyric acid, or serotonin, melatonin, acetylcholine. All these are neurotransmitters, and glutamate receptors. All these are there in order to facilitate the neural transmission and all those things. Do you find all those things? Yes, in plants also. Now, particularly one chemical compound, glutamate receptor, its only function is neurotransmission. It is there in the plants. Now, there are some skeptics who would say that all talk about neurons, brain, consciousness in plants is all balderdash. In fact, I will tell you about that also, because I should give you both these sides. It is all balderdash, nonsense and all those things. For that, the proponents argue, what is this the glutamate receptor doing in plants? Its only known function is that. If it does not have a function, in the course of natural selection, this should have been totally destroyed. Why is it there? And remember, human beings are not totally divorced from the other forms of life. We are intrinsically related even at the molecular level. You know that we share more than 35 to 40% of our gene with a bacterium E. coli. And we also share genes with the plants. In fact, you see, with the DNA sequencing experiments, it has been proved that the genes that produce acetylcholine, genes that produce serotonin, melatonin, is it clear? Same gene sequence is present in plants also. In fact, human beings, they share these genes with 140 species of plants. I don't say only 140 known so far. So it is not as if, then you might say, then why also they did not evolve into human beings? It's a beautiful question. Because if we share more than 40 to 45% of our genes with E. coli, then imagine we should have been nothing but a lump of E. coli. Is it not so? Because E. coli also have the same genes. Then why are we different from them? Of course, it is because it will be a bit too technical. If Mendelian genetics were to be true, I think some genetic students would understand, if in Mendelian genetics, each gene is discrete. It does one function and then it keeps quiet. Is it clear? In which case, in order to ascertain for each function, there should have been as many genes as there are functions. That is too much profligacy. Nature always believes in economy. So it does in coordinated work. Is it clear? If one gene is there, one function. If it is associated one more gene, 3 functions. How 3 functions? A, one function, B function, A and B, one more function. Is it clear? If it is ABC, 3 more functions. And again also sequence. ABC 1 function, BAC 1 more function, CBA 1 more function, because all this will give economy. Our system is so complicated, it is because of the collective functioning of the genes. Is it clear? So, neurotransmitters and neurons are present also. In fact, perhaps another piece of interesting information for you, neuron is a Greek term. Do you know what is the actual meaning of neuron? Vegetable fiber. The actual meaning of neuron, of course, vegetable fibers were discovered much earlier than, and when they wanted to give a terminology for the of course, just by the philological comparison, we cannot say neuron always means a vegetable fiber. So this is how mechanism, neurotransmission, all these things will be taking place in plants. Now coming to one question, I think somebody, Mr. Gopal, I don't know whether he's, shall I answer your question? When I first requested him I'm so happy that you have come. Whether the first thing he asked me was, then do you mean to say plants have brains? I told him, of course, please ask this question in the gathering, then I will answer. If you are thinking of the structural complexity or structural simplicity or structural simulation of a brain, what you see in animals and human beings and others, the answer would be no. Is it clear? But if you are thinking in terms of functioning, it is yes. It is yes. I will also answer perhaps your further question. If something like brain is there, even in function, is it localized or is it systematized in particular groups here, there and everywhere? Again, the answer would be both yes and no. Because the growing tips of the plants, like leaf tip, stem tip, root tip, they are more active electrically in terms of, it's called electrophysiology, in terms of those things than when compared to others. Particularly in the root apex, just behind the meristematic tissue, there is what is known as a quiescent center. The quiescent center is the place or intermediary where the meristematic cells mature into higher cells. Because most kind of chemical activity, electrical activity is also found there. So, but if you are already thinking that brain should be like this is the framework I draw for the brain, can I look at that kind of a brain in plant? It is not possible. But I have already told you all the manifestations what a brain can do, what a transmission would be there. But the transmission in plants, I am telling you, is much more fantastic because you don't see a structure, but you see the effect. That's why I gave the example of wireless. And normally we say plants are more primitive than human beings. I would like to ask you a question. Between wired and wireless, which is most advanced? Which is more sophisticated? Is it wired or wireless? Wireless is more sophisticated. The problem would be, in a wired one, you put a switch, there is a direct contact, and you will see the reception bulb glowing or whatever it is. Here, transmission signal is straight. Signals will not go astray. Strength also would be there. But in wireless one, when plants have achieved that, and if you say that something is still incomplete, it is not there, it is not that it is incomplete, let me repeat, our knowledge about them is incomplete. Our knowledge about them is incomplete. So there are many, many more fantastic things. Now I will come to the last aspect of my talk. For the past 4 decades, I have been researching upon Indian science, particularly Indian botanical science. Once I studied Mahabharata, because Mahabharata is supposed to be and Ramayana also, the 2 great epics, they are supposed to be the repository of everything that is fine in our Indian culture, Indian life and everything. Particularly Mahabharata comes very close to the modern day life when compared to Ramayana. Ramayana is all about goody things, right? Which may or may not be possible. And normally whenever we talk of rishis, I think I always say, we have a picture in our mind, a person sitting underneath a tree, having a long unkempt beard, is it clear? Disheveled hair, these are the things, and holding the nose, whether eating or not eating, eating leaves once in a week, once in 15 days, once in 40 days, and always thinking about hell, heaven, etc. This picture of a rishi that we have is not true. Rishis were scientists. Why were they in forests? They wanted to be in close proximity of nature, to be able to observe, study, and understand all the intricacies of the universe, both physical and metaphysical. With reference to this plant neurobiology, I will come to that. I was wondering whether there is anything our ancestors have contributed. Of course, I don't believe in trying to take something, anything nonsense and say it is there. If you try to do something else, you pull out an unripe mango, squeeze it this way, that way, make it soft and say it becomes a fruit. It might become a fruit superficially, but the taste would be still sour. You must allow it to naturally ripen and grow. So, I am very conservative in my facts. Do you know, in the Shanti Parva of Mahabharata, 2 rishis discuss. The chapter itself is called as Bhrigu Bharadwaja Samvada. The discussion between Rishi Bhrigu and Bharadwaja. What is the discussion? If they discuss about, say, let us say that whether we can eat today, I think it is more than 35 days I have not eaten, or did you get an edible leaf there, edible fruit there, I can understand. But why should they discuss whether plants have life or not? In the course of this, they talk, what all I have talked, all about plant neurobiology they talk. For example, I will just mention 1 or 2 verses. Ushmato mlayate parnam tvakphalam pushpamevacha mlayate chaiva shitena sparshena statra vidyate. Because of the touch, Ushmato mlayate parnam tvakphalam pushpamevacha, because of the excessive heat, is it clear? Fruit, leaf, everything gets dry. Because of that, I say there is a feeling of touch. Sparshe, ushmato mlayate parnam tvak phalam pushpamevacha. Tvak is the skin, that is the bark, pushpamevacha. Mlayate chaiva shitena, because of the cold. Sparshe nas tatra vidyate. There is a sense of touch here. Right? Vayavagni nirghoshaihi phalam pushpam vishiryate shrotrena grinhate shabdam tasmat shunvanti padapaha. Because of the external sound of the thunder and all those things and sound of air, is it clear? Fruits and flowers, they dry up, is it clear? That is why they are able to hear the sign, hear the sound or the voice. Vayavagni nirghoshaihi phalam pushpam vishiryate shrotrena grinhate shabdam tasmat shunvanti padapaha. And then about the sense of vision. Valli veshtayate vriksham sarvatre naiva gacchati nahvaya drishta margosti tasmat pashyanti padapaha. When a climber grows around a tree, how does it know it has to grow around here? Unless it is able to see, literally see. That is why I say tasmat pashyanti padapaha. Papai pundair gandair dhupaischa vividhairapi arogah pushpitas santi tasmat jigranti padapaha. With incense and all those things and good water, plants are able to perceive. That is why I say plants are able to smell. Padai salilapanacha vyadhinamapi darshanam vyadhi pratikriyatvacha vidyanti rasanam drume. They are able to taste, because with bad water and all those things, they will get diseases. If there is a good water, they won't develop any of these diseases. And then, Vaktre notpala nalena yathordvam jalamadade tatha pavana samyukta padaif pipati padapa. Look at the ascent of sap theory. Because of the evaporation of water from the upper parts of the leaf, the water gets into the plant through a vacuum force. This is what we teach as Dixon and Joly's theory of ascent of sap. And then, this is a discussion. Bhrigu is not satisfied. And then, once again he says, what happens to this water that gets into the plant? Tena tajjala madattau jarayat yagnimarutaihi ahara parimanascha sneho vriddhischa jayate. The entire concept of photosynthesis here. Tena tajjala madattau, this water that gets in, jarayat agnimarutai. It gets cooked with the fire of the sun and water. Ahara parimanascha, food is prepared. Sneho vriddhischa jayate, the plants will grow. All these are manifestation of the senses. Is it clear? And then, grahanats sukadharmatva chinnasya cha virohanam. Jivam pashyame vrikshanam achaitanyam na vidyate. Of course, in the religious way they say they're able to withstand both good and bad things, and when you cut them, they grow into pieces. Because of all these things, I say, because of all these things, Jivam pashyame vrikshanam achaitanyam na vidyate. What the modern scientists have done, which I've explained so far, proving the sense of touch, sense of smell, everything is mentioned there. Is it not? I don't want to say complete neurobiology, rudiments of plant neurobiology. In fact, I am preparing a paper to be published shortly, Life and Consciousness in Plants as depicted in the Shanti Parva of Mahabharata. After having said this, you might ask, is there any Indian who has done this work, whom unfortunately our great secular government has forgotten? There is one very, very great man, I am sure all of you know, Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose. He is a hallowed name. It's a revered name. Do you know? He worked during British times. And do you know what was the salary he is getting? For the same work, the white-skinned people, if they are given 300 rupees, Indians were given 100 rupees. That means 1/3 of the wages for the same kind of a professor work. And do you know what he did? He did not do tool-down strike. He worked for 3 years without salary. Did every other work. And do you know that white-skinned principal, he was so unhappy with Jagadish Chandra Bose. He gave him lots and lots of work during daytime, during the working hours. Jagadish Chandra Bose did not go home. He wanted a room. Do you know which room was given to him? A room adjacent to a lavatory, not laboratory. He had a laboratory adjacent to a lavatory. Is it clear? He did not have any grouse. Is it clear? He did not fight. Is it clear? He did his work, in spite of doing all the other college work. And finally, at the end of 3 years, British government thought that what they are doing is injustice, so they gave him his total salary. With this kind of limited things, do you know what is the fantastic work they did? Unimaginable, I'm telling you. The students of botany should know. Unfortunately, even I used to teach like that before I am aware of it. While teaching the upward movement of plants, there is one J.C. Bose theory also. Do you know, when we give so much importance to Dixon and Joly's theory, in one sentence we used to describe Jagadish Chandra Bose vital force theory and then say it is wrong. But do you know, that is the correct theory. Today I am going to prove it. I have proved it. Because Dixon and Joly's theory simply considers plants as only a tube. That means there is evaporation of water and water gets in. That means it is only a movement of the tube, is it? And where is the energy? Energy elsewhere. Then that means there is no control of the plants over the entry and exit of water. Do you know what J.C. Bose did? All kinds of invention. I am telling you, he is a great physicist and a greater biologist rolled into one. Unfortunately, I am telling you, none of our syllabus in any of the college will include one chapter about Jagadish Chandra Bose. The loss is not for J.C. Bose, loss is for us. He invented an instrument called chrysograph. All his own inventions, is it clear? In an ordinary laboratory, he did not have any grounds. And this chrysograph is a small, tiny instrument to measure the lowest form of electrical potential. And when he attached this to a galvanometer, and when the needle of the chrysograph was taken up to the root cortex level, there are violent oscillations. So J.C. Bose said, water can enter physical force, but this is the one that controls. That is called the vital force theory. Today people have accepted this. And mind you, he was the first person in the continuous link of science. Of course, we seem to have a clean break from our ancient scientists. He is a link, he is a modern link from several points of view, not only for his innovative scientific discoveries which are unparalleled, but because also of his unselfish attitude. I am coming to that, right? So this is what he discovered, that vital force theories are true. I am reminded of one thing. Kriya siddhi satve bhavati mahatam nopakarane. It is not the instrument that gives greatness to a scientist. It is this that gives greatness to a scientist. Instruments are only incidental. To prove your theory, use an instrument. And he took a path which nobody has taken. Again, I am reminded of a Subhashita. Mahajano yena gata sapantaha. An elephant will not walk on a trodden path. It makes way. Wherever elephant goes, there is a path. That is what J.C. Bose did. Unfortunately, he was not given a credit. I do not know how many of us here know. Americans know. 1.5 years earlier than Marconi, He invented radio waves, and he said that how signals can be transferred from one place to another. Wireless transfer of signals, he is the first human being who has discovered. Not in olden times, I need not bring the scripture of Ramayana or Mahabharata. In Calcutta, in one room there is a button, another room there is a gong. He pressed this and a ringing of bell was there to show that across the wall signals can be transmitted. For people who question what the ancient Indians, modern Indians have done, all your telemetry, satellite sending, mobile phone, everything would have been useless like a matchbox, but for this wireless transmission of the signals. Unfortunately, when he proved about these plants also, he was the first one who showed how the leaflets of Mimosa pudica will drop down. He wanted to show this experiment. With very great difficulty, he carried 3 plants to London at that time, and they had to travel through ship. He was not allowed into the hall of the Royal Society. And when he published a paper, they said it is not of up to a quality. But since you have brought the paper, we keep it in the outside library. I am not telling any story. Keep it in the outside library. They won't publish it. We will keep it there outside. Like a pariah. Is it clear? Keep it. Whosoever wants, they might read. But against the brilliance of original intelligence of Jagadish Chandra Bose, which shone brighter than 1,000 suns, they could not do anything. Finally, they invited him to be an FRS of the Fellow of the Royal Society. He is a link between the ancient, and he is the first person whom we should remember. I will tell you one thing. There is a society in America called Plant Neurobiology Society. I am also a member of that. Do you know in the preamble what do they say? Plant neurobiology, the credit of pioneering plant neurobiology should go to J.C. Bose. Because of racial considerations, he was not given whatever that was due. He should have been given Nobel Prize, but Britishers did not give. I am reminded of an attitude. You have maid servants in your house. Normally, sometimes they bring the child. A child does something, and you'll be wondering how this inferior level of human being can do this, but at the same time, you want to encourage. So just as tapping the head of your puppies, good. That means you are not giving its complete due. That is what Britishers did for J.C. Bose. They wanted to show that they have not completely destroyed the Indian culture. At the same time, this is more dangerous than that. You don't give totally whatever that is due. They encouraged him, allowed to go to England, insulted him there, and then they brought it back. I do not know when the independent India will realize this. I am sorry, they have not realized it at all. I think I should thank you so much for listening to me so patiently, giving me so much time. Thank you so much. Is in a lighter vein. And then, do you know what the plant said? At least after your lecture, yourself included, others should realize whenever a human being is in a stage where he cannot talk and all those things, tell them to refrain from using the term vegetative state. Otherwise, if a plant is in a coma, we have to say human state. They should not do that. And then it objected to one more word also. When you don't want a plant, you call some of our relations as weeds. Never use that term. Because we may say unwanted plant, our relation will say you human being. So tell them not to do this in a later vein. Can we get an instinctive response from plants? Yes.
Measurable.
Yes. Not measurable. You will wonder that whether somebody has waved a magic wand to spring back this into plant. You must have heard of resurrection plants. Silaginella bryopteris, Silaginella rupestris, Silaginella lepidophylla, all are available in Western Ghats and also on Avenue Road. It will be just a lump. You sprinkle water, lo and behold, as if somebody has kicked them, they get up. Now, researchers are going on. In fact, myself and some Tumkur professors, we have submitted a project to DST. What I am interested here is, you see, of course, I was just trying to find out because I published a paper on the flora of Ramayana. There, Sanjeevani plant is mentioned, right? I was wondering which mountain it could be, and finally with my identification, with some more corrections, it is the Baba Budangiri Hills, originally known as Chandradrona Parvata. That is the original meaning for that. It is from there Sanjeevani plant was brought. I wanted to know whether this Silaginella could be the Sanjeevani plant. But my doubt persists, because Sanjeevani plant, this Silaginella resurrects itself. But Sanjeevani should resurrect somebody else. Is it not so? But what is important here, I am telling you one thing. You see, everything is practically dead. Complete dehydrated condition. That means what minimum water at the molecule they use and still survive. At the moment it is there, what happens? Genes get triggered, genes become active, they produce mRNA, they produce proteins, they produce enzymes, and everything comes back to life. It is there. Of course, these are exceptional ones. You don't find in all.
Friends, I have one question from my end, sir.
Oh, yes, please.
Just as we find struggle for existence, do you find any such functions in plants? Struggle for existence, when human beings attack them or try to protect themselves.
Yes, they are struggling. Not only human beings, all plants are also struggling in Bangalore. In fact, they are struggling much more than human beings. You subject them to stress. In fact, I have done some work on stress reaction in plants also. I collected plants from 3 different regions. Top of Kemandugundi, middle of Kemandugundi, foothills and Bangalore. Same plant, same species. Is it clear? Nothing externally visible. When we subject them to chemical analysis, is it clear? There is more production of proline in plants of Bangalore of the same species than elsewhere. Proline is an amino acid that is produced only whenever something is subjected to stress. I am doing one more experiment. There is an accumulation of a compound called trehalose. I have not checked it. I am sure trehalose will be there also.
Friends, I am very sure all of you have enjoyed the talk. At least one thing will come out of this talk, that even though externally, biologically we claim we are with eyes, with ears, everything, yet we are blind and dumb for so many other things. We need to develop that kind of sensitivity wherein we can hear the plants, talk to plants, interact with the plants. Sir, on behalf of the family of Professor C.R. Narayan Rao and on behalf of this institution, I am extremely thankful to you for giving this very interesting and educating lecture and spending your time here this evening. Thank you very much, sir. Karnataka